Emmerdale has confirmed who was responsible for poisoning Kim Tate, and the culprit is revealed to be Graham Foster. This shocking twist was shown to viewers during Wednesday's episode, although Kim herself still believes her collapse was caused by accidentally taking too much of her medication. Graham was later seen making a suspicious phone call after interfering with her medicine supply, admitting that he would need to come up with another plan after his attempt with a double dose didn't work. Discussing these scenes, Andrew Scarborough explained that his character continues to hold deep resentment towards Kim for trying to have him killed in the past. He said Graham is still furious about the events from 6 years ago, which forced him to fake his own death in order to escape the threat on his life. As a result of that ordeal, Graham lost Rhona, and he has never been able to forgive Kim for everything that happened. He added that Kim effectively stole years from his life, which is why Graham is now seeking revenge against her. Even though his attempt to harm her failed, the actor suggested there may be more to it emotionally. He hinted that Graham might not have been fully committed to going through with it, possibly because their relationship is complicated. According to him, if Graham had truly been determined, he likely would have succeeded in his plan. Meanwhile, tensions rise in the village as news spreads that Kim's collapse may have been caused by poisoning. Chaz Dingle becomes deeply unsettled by the situation, while Cain Dingle and Caleb Milligan clash as suspicions begin to spiral. At the same time, Joe Tate returns from his trip to visit Kim in hospital, though she is far from pleased to see him. Graham's storyline is set to continue next week, with unfinished business from the Corriedale crossover finally being revisited. In the episode that marked his unexpected comeback, he was seen releasing Coronation Street newcomer Jodie Ramsey from the back of a van. Viewers of both shows have been eager to learn why Jodie was being held and what Graham's involvement really was, and it appears that answers may soon be revealed. Another Emmerdale resident begins to notice the connection between Rhona and Graham, and it isn't Marlon. Rhona has denied having feelings for Graham so often that she might as well make it permanently clear to avoid repeating herself. Although she insists her loyalty is with Marlon Dingle, she is finding it increasingly difficult to ignore the spark that still exists between her and Graham. In tonight's episode, the pair shared a brief encounter that didn't go unnoticed by someone close to Marlon. As Rhona was leaving the vet's, she almost collided with Graham at the door, leading to an awkward moment between them. Graham had come by to collect medication for a horse from Home Farm, but Rhona became flustered and mixed up her words, accidentally revealing that Kim's horse was at the clinic. Observing the situation from outside the cafe was Paddy Kirk, who grew suspicious after noticing how physically close Rhona was standing to Graham, even though he couldn't hear their conversation. This follows a recent moment when Lydia Dingle also saw Rhona and Graham together, and later questioned her about it, only for Rhona to deny anything was going on. However, things are set to escalate next week, as Rhona eventually gives in to her emotions when she learns that Graham has been stabbed. While tending to his injuries, she shares a close moment with him, unaware that Marlon has quietly arrived after becoming suspicious. He ends up witnessing an almost kiss between Rhona and Graham, confirming his worst fears. Marlon then confronts Rhona directly, asking if Graham is the man she truly wants, and her reaction says more than words ever could. Now the question remains, could this finally be the breaking point? Emmerdale has revealed a crucial new development involving Celia that could save Moira Dingle from spending the rest of her life in prison. The key to Moira's freedom is hidden somewhere on the grounds of Celia Daniels' former farm, but nobody knows it's there. Earlier this year, Celia was killed by her son Ray Walters, who buried her body on land belonging to Butler's farm. Beside her grave, another shallow burial hid the body of refugee Anya. Ruby Milligan, who was acquainted with Anya, began to suspect the young woman had died after a comment from Bear Wolf. She discovered the grave and alerted the authorities, unaware that they would uncover a second body on the site. As a result, Moira is now facing a double murder charge. On top of that, a plan orchestrated by Joe Tate has left her potentially facing a modern slavery sentence as well. Joe instructed Robert Sugden to plant ID cards from Celia's house at Butler's farm, making it appear that Moira had been involved in the horrors that took place there. The problem for Moira is that there is no evidence to prove her innocence until today's episode. Paddy Kirk and Marlon Dingle decide to visit Celia's farm as part of a personal mission to confront their own struggles. Outside the house, a large pile of furniture caught their attention, and they began smashing it to release their frustration. The episode focused entirely on the two men, exploring their emotions amid the challenges in their lives. For Paddy, it was the stress of his upcoming trial, while Marlon was worried that Rhona might leave him for Graham Foster. During their conversation, they reflected on how they had dealt with Celia and Ray. While breaking chairs and tables provided a physical outlet, the men found that speaking openly about their feelings was far more effective in helping them move forward. While surveying the site, Marlon noticed a key labelled HSU 107. Because the police had already searched the property, he and Paddy assumed it wasn't significant. However, the key turned out to be extremely important. In central Houghton, a storage unit numbered 107 was found, filled with paperwork that could potentially prove Moira's innocence. Since Marlon and Paddy didn't think the key mattered, nobody else has a reason to return to the farm. The big question now is, how will the key be discovered? Marlon and Paddy take a significant step forward in Emmerdale after a harrowing year. Both men were deeply affected by Celia Daniels' time of control over the village. For Marlon, the ordeal forced him to protect April Windsor and his family when he discovered that she had been coerced into dealing drugs. Paddy's life was also turned upside down earlier in the year when Bear Wolf returned after being enslaved on Celia's farm and killed Ray Walters. Paddy and Dylan Penders tried to cover up Bear's involvement in the murder to shield him from the law. However, Bear, traumatized and unable to keep the secret, eventually confessed to the authorities. The situation worsened when D.S. Walsh, convinced that Bear hadn't acted alone, put so much pressure on him that he snapped and claimed he had intended to kill Ray all along. Bear made this claim solely to protect Paddy and Dylan from facing prison time. Once the two men learned about Bear's statement, they came clean to the police about covering up Ray's death, and they were charged with perverting the course of justice. Paddy and Dylan are now out on bail and will soon face trial, a waiting period that is particularly agonizing for Paddy. Unable to distract himself with work at the vets, Paddy finds his thoughts constantly spiraling. In tomorrow's episode, Paddy visits Smithy Cottage and opens up to Marlon about his feelings. Marlon is heartbroken to hear how consumed Paddy is by self-blame and guilt over the situation with Bear and Dylan. Trying to help, Marlon takes Paddy to Celia's former farm, bringing along 2 sledgehammers and encouraging him to release his anger on the discarded items outside the house. As the new week begins, Marlon and Paddy continue their journey, planning a visit to Andy's Man Club. The charity, founded in 2016, provides a safe, judgment-free space for men over 18 to talk openly about their mental health in a supportive environment. Andy's Man Club was first introduced in Emmerdale during Paddy's mental health storyline in 2023, and attending the sessions has clearly remained beneficial for him. Later in 2023, the men of the village even decided to set up their own local version of the club to support one another. Emmerdale is broadcast on weekday evenings at 8 p.m. on ITV1, and episodes can also be streamed on ITVX.